Hey everybody, Alex Kazora, SteelersDepot.com, back with some Pittsburgh Steelers off-season analysis. Apologize for the lack of videos lately. Been moving into my new house, and obviously with the Steelers season over, we're kind of off schedule from our regular routine of Steelers videos. But I promise you, still a ton of off-season content coming up. I listened to you guys' responses about what you would like to see this offseason. So we'll do mock drafts and tape evaluations and all those kinds of things, I promise. But today, I want to start with kind of a hill I've been dying on lately, and it's a topic I'll probably repeat a lot throughout this process. But I am just really hoping and fingers crossed that this Pittsburgh Steelers team gets serious about investing and drafting a tight end early in April's draft. I think it's long overdue for that, and we'll kind of go through the reasons why 2021 makes as much sense as any year to address that position. Reason number one is that the room's going to look different in 2021, like it will for a lot of positions. In terms of cap casualties, you can basically write it in pen that Vance McDonald will not be a Steeler in 2021, or at least not under his current contract. If you look at where he's owed right now, according to Over the Cap, if the Steelers cut him, they'll save about $5.2 million. And given the cap crunch his team is certainly going to be facing, regardless of where the cap number comes in at, even if it stays flat, they're going to have work to do to get cap compliant and hopefully be able to resign one or two players. McDonald is basically a lock to be cut. He did improve as a blocker in 2020 from where he was 2 years ago, but the value there is just not enough. And so I think he's a very easy cut. And that's going to change the room because there's Eric Ebron, and behind him, there's not a whole lot either. You have Kevin Rader, who could function as a number three blocking, special teams type of guy, and Zach Gentry, who ended the year on IR with a knee injury and has not really shown much of anything in his 2 years in the league. So, just from a depth standpoint, you have Ebron, and he could be cut as well, but I think they ultimately keep Eric Ebron. But McDonald almost certainly will be gone, and so there'll be a hole there to address. Number two is just the philosophy of it for a Pittsburgh Steelers team that is always about, drafting and building from within and building through the draft. They have really neglected the tight end position for way too long. Now, granted, part of that was because you had Heath Miller for so many years, but Miller retired years ago, and they've tried to fill that void with free agent signings and trades, whether that was the failure of Ladarius Green, trading for Vance, which did work out. It was a good trade. Ultimately, they gave up, it was a pick swap basically to get him and well worth it for Pittsburgh. And then last year signing Eric Ebron. But I think if you want to find that longer term stability so you're not constantly rotating through names as they have and as you often do when you focus on free agency, you want to draft somebody. And there's a stat that blows me away. The last time the Steelers drafted a tight end in the top 3 rounds, so day one or day two of the draft, was 2007 with Matt Space, who was taken in the third round. So it's a position they really have not put a lot of stock into. There's been some day three selections, some who have worked out. Jesse James, I think, was a very good fifth round pick, but I want to see this team get serious about investing in the position. And the best way to do that is with a high draft selection. And number three is to shape the future of the position. Eric Ebron's going to be entering the last year of his deal in 2021, the 2 year pact he signed prior to this past year. And you can probably safely assume that'll be his last season. No guarantee, but more likely than not, he's going to be gone after 2021. And the way it typically goes for rookie tight ends is that those guys need a year. It's a very tough transition to go from a college tight end to the NFL, especially the way the Steelers ask these guys to play in line, 3 point stance, and function to some level as a blocker. And so usually that first year is kind of a red shirt type year, even for the top tier tight end. So if rookie tight end, for example, taken first, second round, can kind of be a number two bit piece in 2021 and then ascend to the full time role in 2022 once you move on from Eric Ebron. That's probably the best way to go about it, as opposed to waiting until 2022 draft to go get someone and then making him become the guy right away. So I think if you can do that a year early as opposed to when you immediately need it, that's the best benefit for your team. So, who are some draft names that fit? Unfortunately, this draft class with tight ends kind of similar to last year. I think it's better than last year in my very early surface level analysis of the 2021 tight end draft class compared to 2020. If you could get a Kyle Pitts at 24, that guy would be very tough to pass up. He kind of has a David Njoku better version of Eric Ebron type of vibe to him. Will he be there at 24? It's hard to say here in January, but that seems unlikely at this point. But if Kyle Pitts is there from Florida, if he's available, hard guy to pass on. Some other guys, Penn State product, Fryermuth is an option as well. Brevin Jordan from the U is a guy to check out as well. So maybe you can get one of those two in the second round, or maybe still 24. There's obviously a lot of ways you can go in the first round. Offensive tackle, offensive line in general is going to be one of the more likely areas addressed in round one. You can't predict and guarantee this stuff, especially this far out. But hopefully, you can find someone on day one or day two, invest in the position. And while I think the Steelers obviously want someone who can block and be a complete tight end, the way the game is going, and you saw that with Eric Ebron signing, was you just want to get a good receiver, a playmaker who can make splash plays. Take a give yourself a vertical option downfield, I should say, and that's the most important thing. And if you have to sacrifice some blocking for that, you deal with that. So overall, my ideal, and this is just an ideal off season of how you address the tight end room and what the tight end room could look like in 2021 would be as follows. Like I said, you cut Vance, easy decision. I think Vance is a good dude, a good blocker, but just not worth the money, and he's getting older and probably time to move on anyway. So you have Ebron. I think if you could get, and it depends on your financial situation, but he shouldn't cost a whole lot. If you could bring back Jesse James to Pittsburgh, who is very likely to become a cap casualty by the Lions, he has not done much out there. They drafted T.J. Hawkinson. They're going to get some decent cap relief by cutting him. So cut Jesse. Once the Lions cut Jesse James, bring him back on a maybe 2 year. I don't know what the money would be, maybe $4.5 million deal. Kick most of that to 2022 instead. Sign him cheap that way, and then draft whatever tight end. Let's just call it Pat Fryermuth, maybe at 24. Maybe if he slips into the second round, that could be an option as well. So your depth chart next year would be Ebron, Jesse James, rookie tight end. Again, we'll call him Fryermuth, and then Kevin Raiders on your practice squad and can be called up as your number 3 blocking tight end if there's an injury or whatever the reason would be. That I think is a really strong group. And then as you go into 2022, Ebron's gone. James is still here as a blocker, more traditional type of tight end with your rookie you drafted, who's now in his second year. And I think you're in a pretty good spot right there. So will it happen? Who knows? Depends on what's available. It's tough to find these tight ends. There's only a couple guys probably worth taking early in this draft. If they're not there, or if you address another position, then you're just kind of, that's just what happens sometimes. You can't address everything. But I think, and I've said this last year and it didn't work out, but hopefully I'm going to say it again. Hopefully it will work out, and they address tight end heavily this year with a top 3 pick. I think that is the way this team should go. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below about how you would address the tight end position. What would be your plan? Would it be similar to mine? Would it be different to mine? And if I have any audio issues or anything else that sounds different and you want to hear addressed in a future video, then be sure to let me know about that as well. As always, thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you soon.